Hey there, curious minds. Welcome to another episode of I Wonder, the show where we explore the questions you've been wondering about. I'm your host, Marissa. I worked on this episode with our new writer, Zach. Before we begin, a little bit about Zach. Zach has always loved writing, and with his dream of becoming a writer, I Wonder was a perfect fit. While going through our submissions portal this week, Zach found a question that he said was just the one we had to work on. Mostly because as a kid, this was exactly the thing that Zach's parents used to tell him. Today's question comes from Ashton, who lives in Austin, Texas. Ashton wrote, "My mom told me to be careful when eating watermelon because if you eat the seeds, they will grow in your stomach." He asked, "Is this really true? If I eat a watermelon seed, will it grow in my stomach?" Ashton, first of all, you are not alone. This has been a story told by parents to their children for generations. Will you have to go stand outside with flowers and tomatoes waiting to pass a watermelon? Or is it just a scary story? Let's debunk this myth once and for all.
Wow.
To solve Ashton's problem, we first have to understand how a seed actually works. Think of a watermelon seed as a tiny biological space capsule. Inside that hard black shell is everything a plant needs to start a new life. It has a tiny embryo, which is basically a baby plant, and a small stash of food to help it get started. However, that capsule is programmed to stay off until it lands in the perfect environment. Scientists call this state of being asleep dormancy. For a seed to wake up and start growing, a process known as germination, it needs a very specific set of conditions. It needs the right amount of moisture, the perfect temperature, and most importantly, it needs oxygen and light. So when you swallow a seed, it definitely finds moisture and heat inside your body. Your internal temperature is around 98 degrees Fahrenheit, which sounds like a perfect day for a plant to settle in. But your stomach is missing the most important ingredient of all for a happy plant. Even though it's wet and warm in there, your stomach is basically a pit of doom for a tiny seed. This is because of your gastric acid. This acid is incredibly powerful. Its entire job is to dissolve food and kill off any uninvited guests like bacteria that might try to make you sick. The moment that watermelon seed hits your stomach, it's not being planted in beneficial soil. It's being dunked into a chemical bath designed to dissolve everything. Even if the seed had a super tough shell that could survive the acid, it still wouldn't be able to grow because of a total lack of space and light. Seeds are smart in a very chemical way. When a seed is put in the dirt, it uses a process called gravitropism, which means the plant figures out which way to grow. Thanks to gravitropism, even if your stomach could grow a fruit, it would only come out of your mouth and nowhere else. But how does this gravitropism work? Seeds have grains called statoliths that sink to the bottom of the seed, which go onto the root, and the stem comes out the other end of the seed toward the sun. In your stomach, there is no sun. It's pitch black in there. Without sunlight, a plant cannot perform photosynthesis, which is the process where plants turn light into energy. A plant trying to grow in a stomach would be like a car trying to drive with no gas. It simply wouldn't have the fuel to get past the tiny sprout stage, even if the acid didn't get it first. Instead of turning into a vine, that seed just goes on a very long, dark water slide through your digestive system. Since the human body isn't very good at breaking down the tough outer shells of a seed, it usually just passes right through you, completely unchanged. In the world of biology, this is actually a very common way for plants to spread. Many plants actually want animals to eat their seeds. It's a clever survival strategy. The plant makes its fruit sweet and delicious so that an animal will eat it, seeds and all. The animal then walks far away and eventually leaves the seed behind in the animal's droppings. Its poop. The seed even gets a little bit of natural fertilizer to help it grow in its new home. So, by swallowing that seed, Ashton, you're actually acting just like a bird or a bear in the wild, helping the cycle of nature without even trying. Now, while we know that a watermelon won't grow in your belly, you might be wondering if anything has ever grown inside a person. There actually are a few very rare, very strange stories in medical history that sound like they came straight out of a horror movie. In one famous case, a man had a tiny pea sprout inside of his lung. But here's the key difference. The lung is full of air and moisture. It doesn't have the stomach acid that breaks things down. Because the pea was in his lung instead of his stomach, it found enough oxygen to wake up and grow a tiny sprout before doctors safely removed it. But don't worry, this is incredibly rare and only happens if someone accidentally inhales their food instead of swallowing it. As long as the seed goes down the right pipe but into your stomach, it has zero chance of sprouting.
Perfect!
So, the next time your mom tells you that you're going to turn into a giant fruit, you can give her a little lecture on the science of gastric acid and the lack of photosynthesis. You can explain that your stomach is a digestion machine, not a garden bed. You aren't going to have a vine coming out of your mouth, and you certainly aren't going to be providing the fruit for next year's barbecue from inside your own stomach. It's a great example of how our bodies have evolved to handle all sorts of things we might accidentally swallow, from fruit seeds to the occasional piece of chewing gum, which, by the way, also doesn't stay in your stomach for 7 years. But that's a story for another episode. The world is so full of these kinds of myths that sound true enough to be scary, but once you pull back the curtain and look at the biology, they turn out to be nothing more than tall tales. Our bodies are incredibly good at protecting us and making sure that the only thing growing inside of us is us. Every time we learn the real science behind a myth, the world feels a little bit less mysterious and a lot more fascinating. Thanks again to Ashton for such a fruitful question. And remember, if you have a question you're curious about, submit it on our website, iwonderpodcast.com, and we might just feature it in our next episode of I Wonder. Until next time, stay curious and keep wondering.